There are only two kinds of intelligent species in the universe, the ones that build museums and the ones that end up in them. That sentence appears in no textbook, no star map, no archived mission transcript, but it was spoken once, quietly, into the static between stars by a dying linguist who forgot her own name before her lungs stopped. You won't find her words in any record. The universe is full of gaps, little erasures, moments that should have been written down but weren't. That's the nature of intelligence, isn't it? To curate meaning, while quietly discarding everything else. We used to think the silence meant no one was out there, that we were alone, exceptional, untouched. But silence isn't absence, it's design, a space between the notes, a pane of glass between the animal and the observer, a locked door with no handle, only a one-way mirror. The quiet was never empty. It was watching us. It still is. And somewhere, far beyond the mapped edges of space, past the boundary where time begins to forget itself, something waits. It is not sleeping. It does not dream. It remembers. Because that's what it was built to do. And when we finally reach it, when we step through its door and peer into its quiet halls, we won't be discovering the future, we'll be walking into our own past, labeled, catalogued, preserved. Welcome to the museum. Welcome back, traveler. Before we set course tonight, take a second to anchor us. A thumbs up or a comment is like a signal ping through the void. It lets me know someone's out there. And if you feel like journeying with us again, subscribing opens the hatch to all future missions. Dim the lights. Get comfortable. Tonight we drift into the unknown. Chapter 1. The Summoning. Scene 1. The lecture hall. Dr. Elias Ravel stood before an audience of 12. 10 of them were students, half asleep, half distracted, and the other 2 were administrative auditors pretending to be interested. He could tell by the way they didn't take notes. Behind him, a faded projection flickered against the lecture hall wall. An image of an extinct alien settlement shimmered, circular dwellings built into the side of a red cliff, the civilization long dead. No bodies, no records, just architecture and mystery. Civilization Zeta 9, Elias said, gesturing lazily. Carbon dating suggests they vanished roughly 22,000 years before our own Bronze Age. No war, no famine, just gone. He turned back to his audience. Some say a plague. Others propose natural disaster. But what I find more interesting is this. He flicked to the next slide, a sculpture, clearly humanoid, though the proportions were off. Elongated limbs, sunken chest, no mouth. Found in every known settlement, always in the same pose, facing outward, as if waiting. He paused, letting the silence linger, or watching. The slide changed again, this time to a cluster of unknown glyphs etched into a fragment of wall. Jagged, rhythmic, almost like music pressed into stone. No one's translated it, not yet, but I have a theory. He lowered his voice, almost conspiratorial. It's not a warning, it's not a prayer, it's a timestamp. Not when they died, when they were taken. A student yawned loudly. Elias shut off the projector. Class dismissed. As chairs scraped and students shuffled out, one lingered. A girl in her early 20s, eyes sharp behind thick lenses. Dr. Ravel, she said, are you referring to your non-contact hypothesis? He gave her a dry look. Still reading banned papers, Miss Lang. She didn't smile. I thought you made a compelling case. If advanced alien civilizations exist and they don't want contact, then maybe what we call first contact is just us bumping into the glass. He studied her a moment, then gave a tired nod. Maybe. Then he turned and left without another word. Scene 2. The offer. His room on Titan Station was more archive than living space. Stacks of old journals, field reports, and artifact replicas lined every surface. A plant in the corner had long since died, but he hadn't found the motivation to remove it. The message came in after midnight. No sender ID, just a blinking prompt on his terminal. Priority, external contact. He almost deleted it. Most of his messages were spam. invitations to irrelevant conferences, or reminders to renew his license to access certain restricted databases. But this one had an audio file. He tapped play. Static, then, faintly, words. There are patterns in the void. The silence is full. Elias sat up straight. The voice was familiar. It spoke only a few more phrases, indecipherable. But the cadence, the pauses, he knew it. Delphine call, his partner, his translator, his reason for ever having believed in something beyond the flesh and dust. Dead for 8 years. The message cut out. A second window opened. Coordinates. A destination beyond the heliopause. A rogue planet with no star, no heat, and one moon-sized structure orbiting it. No known language, no signals. Just a black void of matter that ate probes whole. A team was assembling. They needed an expert in alien behavior. They needed Elias Ravel. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he looked at the old sculpture on his desk, something he'd smuggled back from a dig on Ganymede before the Ethics Council shut him down. Its face was blank, its posture expectant. He tapped the screen. Accept. Chapter 2. The Wake. Scene 1. Arrival aboard Callisto's Wake. The docking bay doors hissed open with reluctant grace, revealing the spine of Callisto's Wake, a long, angular craft, matte grey, bristling with sensor arrays and deep space shielding. It looked less like a ship and more like a harpoon fired at the heart of the unknown. Elias stepped aboard with one small duffel bag and a half-erased expression. A technician checked his ID without looking up. No one welcomed him. No one smiled. He preferred it that way. The bridge was quiet when he entered, lit by the muted blue glow of hollow panels and starfield projections. One woman stood with her back to him, observing telemetry. "Dr. Ravel," she said without turning. "I'm Marin Saito, mission commander. I've read your papers." "Which ones?" he asked, already bracing. "The ones that ruined your career." She finally turned, sharp features, short-cropped hair, military posture softened only slightly by years of scientific training. No warmth in her expression, but no contempt either. Just precision. "I'm not here to relitigate my credentials," Elias said. "No," Saito replied. "You're here because we found something that doesn't fit into anyone's credentials. And because our AI flagged a 97% thematic overlap with your," she made air quotes, "cultural zoo hypothesis." She handed him a tablet. On it, a schematic of the structure, a massive torus, almost 30 kilometers across, orbiting a planet that had no business existing. "There's no light," she continued, "no heat. It's not dead, but it's not emitting anything either. Probes vanish the second they cross its threshold. It's absorbing energy, scans, pulses, even time signals. It's a curated silence." Elias looked at the data. "It's not a ruin," he said. "It's a vault." Scene 2. Introductions and tension. The crew was small by design. Mina Vorel, 29, xenopsychologist, still fresh from the academy. Her optimism filled the silence Elias tended to create. She greeted him with an eager handshake and too many questions. Ishan Keller, mid-30s, systems engineer. Hair in disarray, always muttering to himself about redundancies, energy flux, and what he called unfriendly topology. He nodded but didn't shake hands. Then there was Galahad, the ship's artificial intelligence. Its voice was crisp, human and calm, but always seemed to trail just slightly after the conversation, like a polite dinner guest whose thoughts were elsewhere. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Ravel," Galahad said. "I've adjusted your cabin's climate to simulate Ganymede based on your preferences logged in 2014-42. "I've never lived on Ganymede," Elias said. A pause. "My apologies. That data point has been corrected." No one else seemed to notice the glitch. They departed Titan orbit within the hour. Destination, the coordinates that had never appeared on any map, because they were moving, a rogue planet, gliding through space with no solar tether. It traveled alone, cold, silent, shadowed. It would take 42 days at maximum burn. They passed the time in half conversations and analysis. Saito buried herself in mission reports. Mina asked too many questions about extinct species. Keller slept in engineering, mumbling diagnostic prayers. Galahad, more and more, responded with slight inconsistencies, location errors, misnamed crew, momentary losses of memory. Elias said little, but he watched, always watched. Scene 3. The rogue planet. On day 42, they reached it. It hung in space like a bruise, a gas giant with no color, no atmosphere, no heat signature. The absence of light around it wasn't just darkness. It was something deeper, heavier, like light had forgotten how to reflect. Orbiting the planet was the object. The torus, a smooth, seamless ring the size of a city, tilted at a lazy angle, its surface a uniform black that ate up every wavelength they pointed at it. No seams, no access points, no motion, just presence. "It's not spinning," Keller said quietly. "It should be, but it's stationary, perfectly stationary." Saito frowned. Galahad, confirm visual stability. A longer pause than expected. "I cannot confirm the torus's relative motion. Observation is being filtered through unknown vectors." "What does that mean?" Mina asked. "It means," Elias murmured, "we're not seeing it. We're seeing what it allows us to see." And then, without prompt, without command, the structure began to open, not by mechanical motion, not with noise or force. One moment it was sealed. The next, the ring was no longer whole. It had a gap wide enough for a ship to pass through, clean and quiet as a curtain parting in deep water. No signal was received, no warning issued. It simply welcomed them. Chapter 3. Entering the Void. Scene 1. The docking. The gap in the torus did not pulse or flicker. It did not rotate, expand, or contract. It simply was. A black aperture in a black surface, swallowing the starlight around it like a lens to nowhere. Callisto's wake drifted forward, its ion drives throttled to near silence. Thrusters hissed in controlled bursts as the ship slipped into the alien throat, swallowed whole without resistance. Inside the gap, the darkness deepened. Lights from the ship flickered, dimmed, then failed entirely. Emergency systems kicked in. The hull creaked, not from stress, but something stranger, like tension in the surrounding space. "Artificial gravity is stable," Keller reported, though his voice wavered. "But readings aren't behaving rationally." "Define rationally," Saito snapped. "I mean," he hesitated, "that space in here isn't following the geometry of outside. The ship thinks we're in 3 places at once, but only if we move." Elias felt it too. Not nausea exactly, more like a shift in narrative, as if the story of his own body had changed direction slightly, like a skipped page in a familiar book. Then came the sound. Soft, barely audible. A hiss, then a long exhale. The docking seal releasing. The airlock opened with no prompt. The structure had accepted them. Scene 2. The first chamber. The interior air was warm and still. No scent, no pressure differential, a perfect vacuum fill. Their boots echoed as they stepped into the first chamber, a vast dome, bigger than any architectural structure built by human hands. The walls curved upward like the inside of a hollowed-out planet, smooth and black as cooled obsidian with no visible seams or joints. "Jesus," Mina whispered, stepping slowly toward the center. "It's beautiful." Light came from nowhere. The dome was gently illuminated by ambient glow, though there were no bulbs, no fixtures. Just a sense of visibility, like sight was being allowed. At the center of the dome rose a sculpture, or perhaps a pillar, or perhaps both. It was too abstract to define. Spiraling upward in no consistent geometry. Part tree, part antenna, part wound. "It's metal," Keller said, scanning it, "but reading at ambient temperature, which is impossible. This place should be near absolute zero." "No dust," Elias muttered, running a gloved hand along the floor. "No decay. Nothing dead. Or nothing alive long enough to decay," Saito added. Scene 3, the hallways. They split into pairs, Saito with Keller, Mina with Elias, and began mapping the inner structure. Each corridor led to another, subtly curving and branching, like a maze designed to guide, not confuse. There were no signs, no text, no markings of any kind. Still, Elias had the eerie sense that the halls knew where he wanted to go. Not in a metaphorical sense, literally. Each turn seemed to arrive just before he consciously made it. Mina, walking beside him, said nothing for a long time. Then, "Does it feel like it's breathing?" He looked at her, she blushed. "I mean, not literally, just the rhythm. The way the air pressure dips slightly every few steps. Like it's drawing us inward." Elias didn't answer. He didn't trust his words anymore. They entered a new chamber, smaller, more intimate, no more than 15 meters across. It looked like a garden or a reconstruction of one. Lavender foliage, smooth stones, a shallow circular pond in the center, perfectly still, and standing beside the water, a figure, not human, not mechanical. Something in between, tall, spindle-limbed, frozen in mid-step, one arm extended as if reaching. Its expression was neutral, empty, a mask without a message. "Is it a statue?" Mina asked. "No," Elias whispered. "It's preserved." The realization struck him like gravity. This wasn't a ruin. It wasn't abandoned. It was a collection. Chapter 4, Shadows of Themselves. Scene 1, Keller's disappearance. Day 5 inside the structure. Time had begun to feel unmoored. Watches lagged. Biological rhythms drifted. There was no night or day, just the endless ambient glow, the steady pressure of still air, and the sense that walls could breathe if you stopped looking at them. The crew held morning briefings, more out of habit than necessity. Keller was late. "Maybe he's rerunning diagnostics," Mina offered. "He's always here early," Saito said. "I want him found." They split up. Comms were live. Keller had been surveying Chamber 6 the previous night, documenting strange EM interference. The recordings he sent back were increasingly garbled, distorted sound patterns, static laced with something like language. But when Elias reached the entrance to Chamber 6, Keller's tether line lay slack on the floor, still coiled, untouched. It ended at the threshold, no breach, no sign of distress, no footprints on the dustless floor, just gone. Galahad ran a full scan of the logs. "There are no records of a crew member named Ishan Keller," the AI reported. Everyone stared at the console. "That's not possible," Saito said. "Pull backups. I've searched the ship's entire manifest. There is no such individual assigned to this mission." "Check his cabin," Elias barked. They did. It was clean, empty, labeled unassigned. Elias remembered standing next to Keller in the airlock, watching the torus unfold. Now the memory blurred. Had he really been there? Scene 2. Distortions. The structure began to change, not in shape, not obviously, but in familiarity. Corridors they had mapped began to subtly reconfigure. Angles shifted, turns appeared where there were none before. Mina swore she found a hallway that led to her childhood bedroom, down to the chipped paint on the doorframe. It wasn't a memory, she insisted. It was there, physically there. Saito grew quiet, analytical, holding on to order with iron logic. Elias didn't speak of what he saw, not yet. In Chamber 11, he heard a voice echoing softly behind the curved walls. Not over comms, not hallucinated, a real voice. Her voice. Elias. Dell. She spoke his name the way no one else ever had, like a promise and a warning in one breath. He turned sharply. Nothing, just the sound of water dripping in a pond that hadn't existed when he entered the room. Scene 3. The Earth replica. That evening, they found a new chamber, unmapped, unlogged. The doorway simply appeared. Inside, a city street, not simulated, real concrete, flickering neon. A row of apartment buildings, a coffee shop, posters peeling on a wall advertising a film that had come out when Elias was 12. It wasn't just a replica of Earth. It was his Earth. "What is this?" Mina whispered, stepping slowly past a familiar newsstand. "This isn't a memory." "No," Elias murmured, "it's an environment. Reconstructed. Preserved." Saito crouched, examining the pavement. "Dust," she said. "Real urban residue. This isn't a projection. This is materially consistent." "Consistent with what?" Mina asked. "With our world," Elias said. "Our culture. not a simulation, a replica. He ran a hand along the brickwork of a building he once lived in during his postdoctoral years. The paint was the same, even the broken window pane on the second floor. A preservation, perfect down to the moment. Mina turned to speak and stopped. There was a figure standing at the end of the block, still, watching, not approaching. Elias blinked, gone. Chapter 5, Vanishing Point. Scene 1, Vorel's fate. Mina was gone by morning. Her bed was untouched, comms inactive, suit locker still sealed. One of her boots was found by the entrance to Chamber 12, placed neatly beside the other, as if she had stepped out of them without a rush. A ritual, not an accident. Her datapad lay on top, still blinking. The last recorded message was unfinished, frozen mid-sentence. I think the structure is... It's not looking for information. It's looking for narrative. When Saito played it back, the message was gone. Elias stood before the entrance to Chamber 12 and felt his own name ripple in his head. Not spoken, not heard, remembered by something that wasn't human. Inside the chamber, silence, a soft hum like breath under stone. He didn't enter, he knew better now. They searched for her for hours. The hallway changed twice while they mapped it. Galahad's nav markers began to contradict themselves. Locations looped, time drifted, and then Mina's name disappeared from the system. Not just the crew manifest, the memory banks, the audio logs, the emergency beacon history. Even Saito's personal logs, there was no record she had ever existed. Elias tried to recall her face and felt it blur, like an old photograph left too long in the sun. Scene 2. Descent. Saito stopped issuing orders. She no longer trusted the structure. No longer trusted her own instruments. But she didn't show fear. She compartmentalized it, packed it away behind protocol and force of will. We go down, she said, all the way. There's a central gravity point. We follow the readings. There was no ladder, no shaft, just a corridor that curved inward and downward, endlessly, folding through space in impossible ways. They moved slowly, every meter stretching slightly longer than the one before. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. No comms chatter, no ship heartbeat, no breath. Only them. And the structure. I used to believe in something, Saito said once, halfway down the spiral. Elias didn't respond. I thought I'd see them one day, she continued. The ones who built all this, the architects. But it's empty, isn't it? No, Elias said softly. Not empty. Just finished. She looked at him. You think it's still working? I think, he said. We're standing inside its memory. Chapter 6. The exhibits. Scene 1. The core gallery. The descent ended without warning. One step, and suddenly the floor beneath them leveled. The curve of the corridor gave way to stillness, a vast black chamber that spread out in every direction. No ceiling, no walls, only space lit by soft internal glow, as if the darkness itself had decided to become visible. Rows of structures lined the ground. Massive vitrines, like sarcophagi made of glass and light. Each one self-contained, each one humming with faint energy. Elias approached the first. Inside was a mountain valley, shrouded in blue mist. A waterfall fell sideways, suspended in time, its droplets frozen mid-air. At the base of the cliffs, a group of figures knelt around a fire that never flickered. Look at their faces, Saito said quietly. They were alien, yes, but unmistakably emotional. Not random postures, not simulations. Moments, scenes caught at the edge of something, fear, joy, awe. It's a museum, Elias said. Saito said nothing. They walked deeper into the gallery. Another case, a crystalline city suspended above a molten sea. Towers grown like coral, creatures fleeing across a translucent bridge, caught in the act of escape. A planet ending, and the moment of flight preserved forever. A third, a concert hall with no walls. Instruments carved from bone and glass, thousands of beings turned to a conductor mid-gesture, frozen in perfect attention. Each exhibit bore a glowing sigil etched into the casing. No language, no symbols. Just a single tone that pulsed when they approached, like a memory being acknowledged. How many? Saito whispered. Elias scanned the room, hundreds. And then deeper in the hall, he saw one labeled in letters that should not have been there. Latin script. Humanity. Scene 2. Humanity's chamber. The case was different, larger. Its containment field shimmered in subtle waves, as though resisting their approach. Inside, earth, not symbolically, literally. A city block, cracked pavement, red brick buildings, rain sliding down glass. A rusted fire escape, a flickering neon sign in the window of a diner. It was dusk, always dusk. The light never changed. The air was wet with a rain that never ended. Elias stared. This wasn't reconstructed from observation. This was recreated from the inside out. The first time I came to Earth, he said quietly, I was 9. I stood outside a bakery just like that one. My mother told me the smell of bread was the smell of memory. Saito was scanning the scene. It's not a projection, she said. I'm getting real atmospheric readings. Oxygen, pressure, material decay consistent with… She stopped. Consistent with what? Real life, or a perfect copy of it? They stepped closer and saw figures within. Walking the street, crossing through the misty light, people, or reflections of people. None of them looked directly at Elias or Saito. They moved in loops, carrying umbrellas, glancing at watches, stepping over puddles, and at the far end of the block, sitting on a bench, was a man leaning forward. Elbows on his knees, Elias stopped. The man looked like him, younger, cleaner, whole. Saito turned to him slowly. This isn't memory, she said. It's continuity. It's the moment, Elias whispered. The moment they chose to preserve us. Saito's voice was ice. Preserve? We're not being studied, he said. We're being remembered. She pulled her sidearm. We end it. Chapter 7. Observer's End. Scene 1. Saito's choice. Saito's grip on the weapon was steady, but her breath betrayed her. It fogged the inside of her visor, a rhythm of control slipping into something more primal. Elias didn't move. Put it down, he said softly. I've had enough, she replied. Enough riddles, enough slow-drip horror. We're going to override the ship's reactor, initiate a fail-safe collapse. If we can't escape, we erase it. All of it. Elias looked toward the case marked Humanity, at the street caught in endless twilight, the silent loop of lives repeating just out of sync with reality. Why do you think it hasn't stopped us? He asked. It's had every chance. Because it doesn't see us as a threat, she snapped. We're artifacts, ghosts, or guests. Saito took a step toward the containment field. It shimmered more visibly now, like thin oil on the surface of water, tense with anticipation. It's trying to remember us, Elias continued, trying to preserve what we were when we mattered. Not at our beginning, not at our end, at our inflection point. We never gave consent, she said. We never had to, he answered. We were observed. She reached out, just barely, and touched the containment field. A ripple spread outward from her hand. Her body shimmered, not with light but with absence, a negative afterimage, like she'd been peeled away from the moment before her. She didn't scream, she didn't collapse, she simply ceased to be. Gone, as if she had stepped into the memory the way one might enter a room and forget why they had come. Elias stared at the spot she had stood. No ash, no equipment, no trace. Then, to his left, a new case glowed softly, another sigil. No name, inside, Saito, frozen mid-motion, her face unreadable, one hand outstretched. Scene 2. The final room. Elias walked. He passed through halls that now knew him, corridors that reshaped themselves to his rhythm. No more glitches, no more resistance. The structure welcomed him. He came at last to a chamber he had not seen before, but one that felt impossibly familiar. It was his life, a university lecture hall years ago. The moment he first argued the zoo hypothesis aloud and watched colleagues recoil, a tent in the Martian desert, where he had kissed Dell beneath a sky that didn't belong to either of them, a corridor, a shuttle, a funeral, a paper retracted. Moments, not scenes, emotions distilled and replayed. At the center of the room stood a version of himself, not a clone, not a double, but a narrative, an echo of memory. He was neither young nor old, just him at the moment of transition. the instant before realization. This was the final exhibit, not of humanity, of Elias Ravel. Chapter 8. Curated. Scene 1. Acceptance. Elias stood before himself, not a mirror, not a memory, something else, some amalgam of past and essence. A stillness shaped like a man who had once tried to explain the silence of the stars. He stepped past it. The exhibit marked humanity was still waiting. The containment field no longer shimmered when he approached. It simply opened, the boundary between observer and observed evaporating like mist. He stepped through. The air changed. Rain fell, cool and familiar. Not artificial, but remembered. The smell of wet pavement rose to meet him. A street lamp buzzed overhead, flickering in rhythm with the past. He walked along the sidewalk. His boots left no imprint. The people around him moved in soft, repeating loops. A man reading a newspaper. A woman lighting a cigarette that never caught. A child pointing at a window full of cakes, always about to laugh. None of them saw him, but they weren't blind. They were complete. Their loop had meaning. A perfectly preserved note in a universal chord, not unfinished, not broken. Elias reached the bench. He sat. Across the street was the bakery his mother once took him to. In the window, a loaf of bread, mid-slice, forever steaming. The rain continued. Soft footsteps approached behind him. He didn't turn. A presence settled nearby. Familiar, worn. He spoke, not aloud, but with thought. Is this the end? No reply came, just the low hum of memory, of meaning suspended in glass. Then a voice. Not Dell, not Saito, not Galahad. Just a quiet whisper from the dark. End of exhibit. Scene 2. Final pane. Beyond the containment field, the great gallery remained silent. The case labeled humanity dimmed slightly, its pulse slowing to match the others. Somewhere, far from time, a mechanism logged the final acquisition, a pulse marked its completion, and the museum, the unseen, the unreachable, turned a page in its vast silent archive. Waiting, watching, remembering. Epilogue, echoes. The stars shifted, not dramatically, not visibly, but just enough. In the black between constellations, beyond the heliopause, the rogue planet continued its drift. Unbound, unseen. Its guardian still orbited in silence, the black torus cold and dormant. Or perhaps satisfied. Then, on a day that was not marked on any calendar, a ship approached, not human. Sleek, white-hulled, designed not for conquest but for listening. It paused at the edge of the torus. Its crew, 3 beings, each shaped by a world with no sky, stood at their observation consoles. Their language was frequency, not sound. Their questions came as pulses. Their intent, curiosity. They had detected something, a change, a new signal, not a beacon, not a warning, a voice, human. It came through layers of encrypted static, spoken in earth-accented English, worn with fatigue, rich with memory. If you're hearing this, you've entered the archive. You won't find us. Not as we were, but you may find echoes. I hope we left something worth remembering. Silence followed. The ship hovered a while longer. Then, after a time, it turned, leaving behind no trace but an entry in its log. Contact, passive preservation, active intelligence residual. And still, in the deep, Callisto's wake drifted through the dark, untouched, unremembered, forgotten, except by the structure which remembers everything.